Okay, everybody, let us begin to this session. There will be three people involved in this session. They're all connected by being members of the IARF, which is the International Association of Liberal Religious Women, but they will be talking about a lot more than that. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and we will start with the Reverend Dr. Esther Suter, and I'm relying on you, Esther, to pass over as we go from one part to the other. So welcome and thank you. And it does seem that the more we get to know each other, the more we want to talk with each other, specifically over a cup of coffee. But Esther, thank you.
Is this on?
This mic is that mic.
Oh.
You want me to put it on here? There you go.
Can you hear me? Good enough? I don't have a loud voice. That's why I ask. I start with the International Association of Liberal Religious Women. A short introduction for those who know and for those who don't know what it is. Recently, a woman asked me, are women's organizations still needed? They have achieved what they aspired for in the Western countries. Indeed, many women's organizations started at the beginning of the 20th century with a suffragette movement struggling to get legal vote for women in their countries. So did start the International Alliance of Women in 1904, of which I was a board member and which I represented at UN Geneva until last year. I also represent them in the national organization in Switzerland. In Switzerland, as one, if not the last country in Europe, we achieved women's vote only in 1971, around 50 years ago. I come back to the question whether women's organizations are still needed in Europe and other parts of the world. This includes the International Association of Liberal Religious Women as well as an organization. Is it still needed? For those who are not familiar, IALRW was founded in 1910. It was at the important 5th World Congress of IARF in Berlin that women's issues were raised for the first time on the agenda of the Congress. Liberal male theologians favored this subject. 5 women were present from Germany, UK, and USA. They are the founders, and Mrs. Helen Brooke Hereford from UK became the first president until 1913 for 3 years. Then they started officially the organization at the 6th World Congress in Paris in 1913. Martha Everett from United States became president and held this position for 34 years until 1947. I received some very old documents from a former IALRW president from Netherlands, Joopie Boeke, or whatever how you pronounce it, Richard Boeke's wife. Among this precious material are letters written to soldiers in prisons during World War I. Yes, that's correct. Mary Everett tried to contact and even visit political prisoners. And I noticed that with her long presidency, about which I do not have any files or documents, she kept IALRW alive in difficult times. During the recent pandemic, when contacts got frozen and Zoom was not working, we did not have activities in our organization, and our president from Malaysia, Kamaronia Kamaruzzaman, was almost cut off in difficult times. Then I reminded these early times of the organization of crisis in the history of IALRW, when apparently just one woman kept the organization alive and was active. That's one of the reasons why IALRW still exists today. I am IALRW member since 2010, since the centennial of the organization prepared by Japanese largest member group. It took place in Kochi, India, following the 33rd IARF Congress. I got fascinated. In fact, I traveled to India to find out what IARF is doing today after such long years. My former late professor of liberal theology, Fritz Buhr in Switzerland, about whom I spoke at the EMI conference, Zoom conference in 2021, was a frequent speaker on continental and world conferences from the 30s until the end of the 50s of the 20th century. He represented a liberal wing in Switzerland as disciple of Albert Schweitzer. He and his wife had organized a meeting in Switzerland in the 50s, of which I also found trace. Back to our question about the relevance of women's organizations. Being member of IALRW and the International Alliance of Women, I already said, I soon noticed the difference between these two types of organizations. IALRW, from their self-understanding, which is described on their website, from their interest and commitment is to create friendship among open-minded or so-called liberal women of various religions who are dedicated to create a culture of peace and justice for all. This makes a difference in being together. Also, competitivity is a human behavior. Friendship, as I experienced with IALRW, is stronger and different. I appreciate this. It is a way to approach another culture, another religion. But why are women's organizations still needed and relevant today? Not only women's vote became an issue, but quite a number of other issues became relevant and were taken up. The UN Decade for Women from 1975 to 1985 included, at that time, gendered violence, land holding, pay, equity, and other human rights. What makes the liberal religious women distinct from other women's organizations? This is the question for our own identity and has constantly to be considered. It affects the meaning of being liberal religious. We will have a chance during this, until the end of this Congress or this afternoon, to learn more about this. And for those who are still left over after tonight here, they have a chance to come to the next 2 days of conference. And for those, and I know there are a few, who are eager to become member, here are the flyers to register. Thank you.